Well, good evening and Happy New Year from Raleigh, North Carolina on this Monday, January the 1st, 2018, shortly after 10:10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I'm coming to you with another video highlighting, the Arctic air we're seeing and all this, prolonged cold weather pattern and how it's going to lead to the potential for some wintry weather on Wednesday night. So if we just start off here with our synopsis of what's going on, we obviously have our cold air. If you've been outside, you know it's been very cold, and we have all these very, very Arctic, very brutal cold temperatures up here in the northern plains, up in the Pacific Northwest, all up in here. If you can kind of slice the country here, and probably 85% of the country is below freezing right now, and that'll continue, especially here in North Carolina for the next couple of days. We might moderate a little bit on Wednesday, but we're going to stay in this cold pattern at least for the first week of 2018. And because of these cold temperatures, we're actually, National Weather Service Raleigh has placed central North Carolina and a couple of surrounding counties in the foothills and in the coastal plain under wind chill advisory, which is just, to say that temperatures are going to be very cold, and even the slightest bit of wind will make it even feel, more brutally cold and, dangerously cold in some cases. A couple of school systems have actually been delayed just, so children aren't standing out at the bus stop in that cold. Some of the diesel fuel used in buses down here in the southeast, these temperatures are just so unusual for such a prolonged amount of time. There could be bus trouble. So some you might be seeing some of those delays. That's because of, or that's why you're seeing that, is because of the cold. You may be saying there's no ice or anything, but it's just very, very cold. And to kind of highlight more of that wind chill, this is a rapid refresh model of focus over North Carolina here, just showing some hourly temperatures. And I'm going to hit my arrow key. It's going forward an hour at a time. And these are just temperatures. You can see by the color bar down here. It looks like I've just cut off there we go. You can see our temperatures here. These are in Fahrenheit. And, the lots of blue here. Anything to the north and west of this 32-degree line is below freezing, and these are air temperatures. And if we go forward in time, this is 5 a.m., 6 a.m. You can see not much is changing. We're still in the teens. There's a couple of places highlighted here. And then all the way through 8 a.m., the sun is up already. Even into 9 a.m., the sun's up. Not much is happening. There's still widespread 20s. And with a little bit of wind, that's in the forecast, that's going to create problems. And that's why that wind chill advisory is out, in order to notify that it's going to be unusually cold, very brutally cold. This is probably going to be the coldest morning, at least for the next 3 or 4 days, when another shot of Arctic air will come through. But all that is to say, bundle up, dress in layers. It's, it's better to be warmer and have to, take off your extra scarf or your extra gloves when you get inside somewhere. But just, be mindful. Very cold conditions, the wind chill, that wind's actually blowing away, the heat from your body if any of your skin's exposed. So, make sure you layer up, and it's not dangerous enough cold to where there's any risk of frostbite or hypothermia immediately. That's more of a problem that some of our friends in the northern plains are seeing, where if you're out in that weather, in that cold of weather for that period of time, that can be very dangerous. But here, just some very uncomfortable. Make sure you remember the 4 P's: people, pets, pipes, and plants. Of course, pets and people being the most important there, with pipes also being important to make sure your pipes don't freeze over. I've already had one family friend who's talked that they didn't know how to properly winterize their pipes, and they've already had a water heater problem. So effects are being felt across the state. But all of this is leading to we talk about the ingredients we need for winter weather. We need cold air at the surface, cold air aloft, cold ground temperatures, and moisture, and a mechanism to drive that storm along. And we have the cold air obviously in place now. So now there's going to be a little disturbance that forms off of the coast on Wednesday night, and into early Thursday morning. So that would be January 3rd to January 4th. That may provide that little bit of moisture that may interact with the cooler air and provide some wintry weather. So just to quickly go back over here, this is ensemble forecast of the highs and lows, high and low temperatures over the next several days at Raleigh-Durham International Airport. So the eastern part of central North Carolina, and you can see our high temperatures in this column here. These are just graphs showing the probabilities, but the main thing to focus on here is this is what's showing our high temperatures. January 2nd, a high of still below freezing, moderating a little bit up to 37 on Wednesday. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, all below freezing, and lows just very low in the teens, maybe approaching some record cold by the end of this week. But then we finally get out of this spell. But before we can get out of that cold period, we have to deal with this potential for some wintry weather on Wednesday and Wednesday night. So to get into that, let's jump over to Raleigh's forecast discussion here. Actually, let's look at soil temperature. So in our some of our wintry precipitation, the possibility for that when we visited that in early December, the soil temperatures were in the 40s, maybe even lower 50s in some spots if I remember correctly. But we were talking about how the cold air is in place now, and some of these are soil temperatures actually, if you can see here. So the ground's frozen in some of these locations. The soil is cold enough to where anything that does fall that will be frozen will stick, and that's the problem we're going to face with this. This time, it's not a problem of whether the moisture is going to catch up to the cold air. We have the cold air; it's just a moisture problem purely now. So that's going to be a very interesting dynamic we have to take into account going forward in the next couple of days with this system to see kind of what's going to drive and how much moisture is going to be available to tap into that warmer soil. And even some of our sandier soils down here in the beginning of the sand hills down here and down in the lower coastal plain, 42, 40, I haven't seen a soil temperature that cold since we had that cold snap at the beginning of 2017 when we got down to I think about 7 or 8 degrees at Raleigh-Durham International Airport, but very cold. I haven't seen these kinds of sandy soil temperatures in a while. So this is a very, very cold weather, and with 2 additional days of either sub-freezing or near freezing temperatures, these are not going to go up. So that's something to keep in mind when the winter weather, if it does arrive and if it comes down hard enough, this is what we'll have problems with the roads and things like that. The good news is that most of it should be snow. And if I go to, here we go, the forecast discussion here from Raleigh, just to highlight a few things, if I can zoom in here so we can see a little bit better. So this is basically the forecast discussion that the National Weather Service in Raleigh puts on the internet for people to read kind of what their thinking is on a certain situation. And their synopsis or general overview: Arctic high pressure remains in place. On Wednesday, a coastal low will develop off the southeast U.S. coast, bringing a threat of some winter weather to eastern portions of North Carolina Wednesday afternoon through early Thursday morning. That's our synopsis here. And if you skip down to some of their more in-depth analysis on Wednesday, model consensus concerning the phasing of northern and southern stream waves and subsequent cyclogenesis along the coast lends more confidence of the potential for some light snow over the eastern counties Wednesday afternoon into the early overnight. Now, in English, that kind of translates to, weather models have been picking up on this. You kind of have, weather typically comes from west to east in the United States, and there's kind of a meeting of some of these, and it may lead to a deepening low pressure system, which you've heard of nor'easters. It's kind of similar to that process where it's going to come up from the Gulf states, Mississippi, Florida, Alabama, and it's going to kind of swing up here, and depending on how close it tracks to the North Carolina coast, to the Outer Banks, will depend on how far inland some of that moisture will get thrown. And the quantity and the quality in this case of that moisture, if it's a lot of moisture, is it, moisture that's going to be, a constant supply? Is it going to be a quick shower? That's the kind of things. How much moisture and what kind of moisture? Is it going to be, sustainable moisture that keeps coming? Is it going to be a constant feed of moisture? Is it going to be kind of a broken up event? Those are the questions that kind of, that we're looking at here. But to kind of go down here and translate that again, snow is expected to begin spreading to the southern coastal plain during the early afternoon Wednesday, spreading north as the afternoon progresses, then tapering off by midnight, and a tight QPF gradient. So that's our quality precipitation forecast. And what that means is peaking at 0.15 inches, that's not a ton of moisture to work with. So we're talking all this moisture. Well, if we put a quantity on that, if you have an inch in a column of moisture, that's a lot of moisture. That's, in the summertime, we have these systems with a ton of moisture coming through. They have, 1 or 2 inches of QPF, or that quantity that we kind of assign to the amount of moisture in a certain storm system. 0.15 is pretty dry, and that's what weather models are kind of showing at this point. And some more advanced metrics here. Basically, that would kind of result in maybe an inch or 2 in some of our counties, because it would be such a quick moving event. But the problem is that models are still kind of divergent on how they want to resolve the situation, and how, which models wants to develop the low and how close it tracks. So to kind of depict that a little better, here we have what you're looking at is 500 millibars up into the atmosphere. So this is about halfway up the atmosphere. You can think of it that way. And you're looking at vorticity in this red, yellow to orange to red to brown shade. And vorticity is just the amount of local spin in the atmosphere. So the more colorful or the more warm colors you see, the more spin there is. So here are our two, we're looking at the GFS model, GFS version, the global forecast system of this. So here are two, you remember I just read about the stream waves. and they're both kind of waves here, and they're coming together, and then they kind of join. And as I go forward in time here, they kind of go, and you're probably looking at this saying, you know, I don't really know what's going on here, but you see a lot of vorticity over North Carolina. You see it off the coast here, and you go up. But one thing to notice here is that, you know, it is joining together, and if I go over to what that would, you know, simulated to the radar would look like, you have nothing. And then when these things phase, as a term in meteorology points out, this low pressure forms down here and is then going to track up the eastern seaboard. And the GFS still, you know, wants to keep that precipitation mainly confined to the coast, and it could spread a little bit in central North Carolina, but not a huge, you know, deal. But if I go over to the NAM model, another model we're looking at here, if I go to a higher resolution here, you know, you see it's a little more excited about that chance and wants to put a lot more precipitation and wants to bring a lot more moisture in. And as I toggle over the, you know, couple hours on Wednesday night here, so the question is still, the cold's going to be there, the moisture is going to be there, but to what capacity and to how much moisture is available is the question that's going to determine if it's a high impact event or what. So to kind of summarize that, if I go back to the National Weather Service Raleigh page here, this is their, you know, expected snowfall. So I'm focused on central North Carolina here. I'll hit the eastern counties in a second, but Triad, you really look to be out of this one. I really don't see this panning out in any way to where you would get any wintry weather from this. There's a possibility if the storm overperforms, you could see a few flurries, but I just really don't see how anywhere west of the US 1 corridor is going to have any winter precipitation from this. From Raleigh and points eastward, you have the chance for, you know, a dusting. And this is the most expected snowfall for Raleigh. And then east of Interstate I-95 here, if you kind of slice North Carolina that way, east of there looks to be the best chance for any wintry weather. And if I go over to Wilmington here, this is, you know, kind of jump to Morehead City actually. Here we go. So this is that, here's I-95 here, and they're going with, you know, from 2 to 3 to 4 inches. So this is a pretty solid area here of, you know, of snow that could come through, with a couple of isolated patches here that could be more. So, you know, you have a very tight gradient to go down here to the Wilmington office. There, you know, here's Sampson County, Duplin County, Fayetteville's right up here, Hoke County, you know, Hamlet's over here, Jacksonville's over here, and you can go up here to New Bern. Kind of, you know, you see this really tight gradient over just, you know, a couple, maybe, you know, 100 miles or so. You go from absolutely nothing to maybe 2 to 3 inches in Wilmington. And even to go up to the Wakefield, Virginia office, which covers, you know, Hampton Roads region, they have areas here, extending Virginia, which I don't really cover as much, but it's very selective. There's a very, you know, even from, if we go and toggle between this and Raleigh, you know, the cutoff here in western Pitt County is, you know, 2 inches, but then you go to Raleigh's forecast and they're thinking, you know, well, that cutoff's going to be right at the inch line. So there's a lot of, you know, discrepancy in the forecast. Some offices are thinking the storm will perform a certain way, but it's just going to be important to watch what this, you know, follow the trends of what's going on and how much moisture is going to be available, because we know that the cold air is going to be there. So overall, looking at for right now, a minimal impact event for central North Carolina, maybe more of a high impact event east of I-95 and in the Greenville and in the Plymouth, New Bern areas, Kinston down to Wilmington, areas Beaufort, maybe areas like that seeing more of an impact from this storm, but not really a major deal for central North Carolina in terms of geographic central North Carolina. I-95 looks to kind of be that mythical cutoff there. That may be where people get lots of snow or no snow. The good thing about this is that it would be only snow. There would not be any icing in central North Carolina because of the nature of the system. Air will be so cold, the entire column of air will be cold. So that's certainly good news that it should not be any kind of impacts like that. But overall, something to watch. I'll have another video update out tomorrow with a little more focused on specific impacts, because we should have a better idea of what the system is doing. But these systems have a tendency to either completely bust or to overperform. So we'll have to keep an eye on that and see what this storm has in store. But we're certainly starting 2018 off with a bang, and the chance for wintry weather is there with this really cold snap, or this really cold period that's led to this cold snap with some very cold temperatures. So until the next video, if you have any questions, feel free to message me on Facebook, send me a message on YouTube, or tweet me at AndrewWXCenter. And until then, I will be happy to answer any questions or to explain on anything I covered in this video. Remember to make all decisions based on official National Weather Service forecasts, and do not refer to social media as your sole way to get severe weather warnings. So until next time, Hope you stay safe and hope you have a happy new year, and stay on the lookout for wintry weather and stay warm. Thanks.